Today we're going to be looking at two constructions that are both perpendiculars. So our first construction is going to be a perpendicular with a point on the given line. So to begin this construction, we're going to need a line and a point on that line. The first thing we're going to do is take our compass, and when you have a point given, that's usually a good place to put your compass point. So you're going to take your compass point and place it on the given point and make a mark on both sides. So I call them like parentheses. They should be the same distance away and don't look very much the same. Let's try that second one again. Okay, that looks a little bit better. So we're going to make like parentheses around the point. Using our compass, you put the point of the compass on the given point. Wherever we have a point, that's a good place to put the compass point. So we're going to put the compass point on the given point and make marks on both sides, and they kind of look like parentheses. So we're going to make parentheses around the given point. Where we get intersections, we're going to label those with points. So I'm going to place points at both of the places those parentheses hit the line. And where we have points, that's a good place to put a compass. So our second step is we're going to put the compass on one of the parentheses and make an arc above and below. And then once you've done that, keep your compass setting. It doesn't have to be the same as the first one. Actually, in fact, it has to be bigger than the first one, because if it's exactly the same, you're just going to hit that point. You won't be able to make a mark above and below. So you have to open up your compass a little bit wider than it was before. And put your compass point on one of those given points and make a mark above and below. You don't actually have to do both. You really can just do one or the other. I like to do both, and I'll tell you why when we're done with the problem. Then, keeping that same compass setting, go over to the other parentheses and do the same thing.
With the same side?
With the same setting. Yep, you have to keep the same setting when you do those two steps. So, step 3 then is with the same size. Repeat step 2 from other side. Then we got some intersections, and where we get intersections, we're going to mark points. So kind of our childhood things we're going to think about here. Goldilocks, we don't want to make things too big or too small because they get difficult to work with or they get sloppy. And then the second thing we're going to think about is X marks the spot. My kids are super into Jake right now, so we watch a whole lot of Pirates at our house. So whenever we see those X's, those are going to be important for us. We're going to make those points and Connect down through. And when you connect those two x's, it should go right through the original given point as well. That's why I like to make marks above and below. You don't actually have to. Just making one of the marks would be good enough. Because if you make just one, you could connect it with your given point and get a line. I like to have both of them there because then I have three things I'm connecting, so it just kind of verifies that they really are all right in a straight line. Because you can always connect 2 points, but it might not actually be the line we're looking for. So if we have both of the x's there and they both line up with the given point, then that just kind of verifies that we found the right thing. Okay, so our final step on this is then to connect the x's. As far as coloring goes, the only thing you would have to color would be the line that's in red. That's the answer. That's the perpendicular line. So the only thing that has to be colored. You could make it more colorful if you would like, though. Questions on this construction? Our second construction is going to be very similar. We're going to do a perpendicular with point off the line. So to set up this construction, we need a line, and we need a point that's not located on our line.
Can you do the same thing in reverse?
Not in reverse, nope. It's actually almost exactly the same process. Just our first step is going to be a little bit different. If you would just sketch a straight line down, you'd have no way of knowing that that's actually 90. So we want to draw a line through that point that's going to connect with our line at a perfect 90
Would you ever do
degree
it if the dot was to like the left or the right?
Hmm?
Would you ever do it if the dot was like to the left or the right? You just have to move the line.
No, there's still no way to just draw it and know for sure that you've done it. Our first step, whenever we have a point, that's a good place to put our compass point. So we're going to put our compass point on the given point. So with compass on point, we're going to make what I call a boat on the line. So what we're going to do is take our compass point and put it up on the given point. And then your compass has to be open wide enough so that it's past the given line. And you're going to cross over that line so that it makes a mark in 2 places. Okay, so with your compass point on the given point, make kind of a boat across the line. In all reality, you don't really need the full thing. You really just need where it's going to hit the line. You just need those 2 places that we're going to mark with points now. Okay, so you don't really need the full arc there, but that's just usually how I do it. It's easier for me to draw the whole thing than picking up and dropping the compass again. So we want to make kind of a boat across the line there to get 2 places that that arc is going to intersect the line. Where we get intersections, we label points, and where we have points are a good place to put a compass. So then we're going to put the compass on one of the intersections. And make an arc. You can make your arc above and below, or you can just make it on one side. It doesn't really matter, and it doesn't matter what size your compass is when you do this. I'm just going to put it on one side, but you could do it at both above and below. Once you've done that, once you've done that, though, now you need to keep your compass the same size. So that doesn't need to be the same size as step 1, but now we need to keep that size that we just used. And we're going to go over to the other intersection point and do the same thing.
It has to be below it or?
Yes.
We want to create an X. So if you did it below the first time, you want to do it below again. If you did it above, you want to do it above again. But it doesn't really matter whether you're doing it above or below. But our goal is to create that X. So step 3 was repeat. Step 2 with same size from other side. Question?
Wouldn't you want it to be on the other side of the line because that way it would intersect the line?
It's going to intersect the line.
But if you did it above.
If you did it above, it'll still intersect the line when you make a full mark through. So I'll just kind of sketch in. If I had done marks on both sides, then I would have a mark here, and so I could still connect it to the point. As long as it's not making an X on the point, because that wouldn't be any new information. So as long as your X isn't happening right on the point, then you'll be fine. But you could make the X above or below or both. And then connects through.
Wait. What?
So what if it's off from the initial point?
Above
It should be in line with the initial point. Your X should be in line with the initial point, and that line should be perfectly perpendicular to the given line.
So you start at the top and do it, then you start on the side and do it to get the bottom.
You start from the top and make the boat, and then from the two sides of the boat, you make a mark, and that's what makes your X.
And it doesn't have to be on the bottom. Yeah.
It could be on the top as well, as long as it's not going through the X, because that wouldn't give you anything new to connect to.
So then do you have to have your compass over really wide because when I was in it, it didn't intersect. It didn't create an X.
It didn't work at all.
I know it's voice, but I changed it.
It shouldn't matter. I mean, as long as it's more than half the distance,
Because one was a longer and one was like over.
then you just need to make your arc wider. Make more of the arc. Alright, I want to show you again how you can do these on the computer program GeoGebra if you are interested in using that to do some of your constructions.
Is it faster? Or
It's just different. I guess some of it depends on how quickly you pick up on using the program. If you're not sure where to get things that you need in the program, it could take a little while just to kind of learn the program. But otherwise, I find it to be a pretty quick thing.
Are you recording this?
Yep. So our first construction, we started with a line, and we started with a point that's on the line. So use my line tool to make a line, use the point tool to make a point. Then what we did was we used our compass to make parentheses around that point. When you use this program, you can't just make little marks. You have to make the full circle. So then I'm going to place a point over there. So now I have these two places where we just drew parentheses, but in this program we have to have the full circle. Then what we did was take our compass and bring it to one of those parenthesis marks, and we made an X above and below, or a mark above and below. We can't really just make the marks. We have to make the full circle. Then we needed to use the same exact size. So now I'm going to grab my compass tool, not just my circle. And I'm going to measure how big that circle is that I just made. So it gives me a circle that's exactly the same size, but I want to place that over at the other parentheses mark. That gives me an X above and below. So I'll mark those with points. And then if I connect those points with a line, I get a line that's perfectly perpendicular to the given line, no matter what I do to my drawing now. So I can take my line and I can move it around, and those two lines are going to stay perfectly perpendicular. I can make the picture bigger, I can make the picture smaller, I can turn it, but no matter what I do to those two lines, they're always going to be perfectly perpendicular to each other. Our second construction was almost the same, except we started with a line and a point that was not on the line. Then we made a boat across the line and marked the places of intersection with a point. Then from one of the sides of that boat, or one of those intersection points, we made a mark, either above or below, it didn't really matter. But then, with the exact same size, so now I need to grab my compass and see how big I just did that. With that exact same size, I want to do that from the other side of the boat. So then I get a mark above and below. I told you you only really need to do one or the other, but since it's drawing the full circle, it's going to give us both of them. And then we want to connect, and it should connect through all three of those points perfectly to make a perpendicular line. And no matter what I do to this again, it's going to stay perfectly perpendicular no matter how I move and drag it around. Okay, so if you're interested in using the program, you can. If you're like, I think I'm just going to stick by hand, that's good too. I do want to make you aware of something that I'm expecting as far as the homework goes. So in the first group of problems on the homework, you are given a diagram of an angle. That looks like this. And then the first one says, draw a perpendicular to AB through point P. So you really don't need the top part of this at all, because we're using line AB and we're using point P. So really you just need this part of the picture to do it. You still need to draw the whole picture. Okay? You don't need to perfectly copy it from the worksheet, like you don't need to trace it out or perfectly copy it from the worksheet, but you still need to have the whole picture there. So even though I'm not using the other part of it, still draw the whole thing. And then on this one, since our point is on the line, we would do our parentheses and our X's, and we would get our perpendicular there. Okay? Sketch. I sketched, you're not sketching, use your compass. But that would be our process on this. Okay? One thing I find to be helpful is in some of the problems, it'll ask you to work with line AC instead. You still need to draw the whole picture just as it looks on the worksheet. But one thing I find to be helpful is then taking my paper and like turning it so that whatever line I'm working with looks horizontally flat to me, because that helps me focus on the correct line. So still draw the whole picture, but you might kind of want to rotate your notebook around so that you're looking at the line that you're working with as being horizontal.
So we don't need to do the steps with our compass to copy the angle?
You don't need to do the copy angle construction. No, you can just sketch it, and use your straight edge, but as long as it's keeping the same relative position, that's good.
What are the points?